So these are the new XEEN lenses made by Samyang in South Korea. They're available in 24, 50 and 85mm T1.5 speeds at the moment, and there will be 3 more lenses available in time. These are PL mounted, but you will be able to change them into other mounts. And for comparison, we're going to look at them next to the Zeiss CP.2 lens line and also the Sony CIneAlta cinema lens line. Let's start with the CIneAlta. Now these are 85mm lenses. All 3 of them are 85mm lenses. The CIneAlta is actually a T2. It's PL only, but it's got a nice smooth focus and iris, let's have a quick look down the iris and you'll see that it's smooth, but it's perhaps a little more square. The blade's a little bit more obvious than the other 2 lenses, which we'll see in a moment. For size, you can see that the Sony 85mm is clearly the biggest, with the Samyang the second and the Zeiss the third. If we look at the Samyang, it's got aperture values that are actually constantly spaced but very close together, which could make it a little hard to precisely close it down just a little bit if you're actually shooting. And then you've got a focus ring which is perhaps a little bit more than 180, perhaps it's 190, I haven't measured it exactly, but it's slightly over 180 degrees of rotation between infinity and closest focus. The iris is nice and smooth, and you can see it there. It's perhaps a little bit squarer than the Zeiss. I'm not 100% sure, but you can make your own mind up when you see the Zeiss in a second. And what's, I guess, more important is how that looks in terms of the bokeh and the out of focus lights that you might get in your image, and you can again see that on the test footage that we have on the site. If you look at the Zeiss, it's a smaller lens. It's a much more compact lens actually, hence the name, compact prime. The iris is not equally spaced, and actually you get much more distance between the stops, the T-stops, at the wider apertures than you do at the smaller ones. The focusing is stiffer. It's about a 200 and something, 270 degree, maybe a bit more focus rotation on the Zeiss. Now if you weigh the 3 lenses, clearly the king when it comes to weight is the Sony, which is about 4 pounds, which is over 4 pounds. Then you have the Samyang, which is 2.5 pounds perhaps, and then the lightest of all 3 is the Zeiss, which is going to tip the scale in a minute at just about 2 pounds. There are obviously PL lens caps on all of these that might be slightly different in weight, but you'll get the general idea of where they are next to each other. And size wise, clearly the Sony is the biggest by quite some margin. The Samyang 24, we don't have a Sony 24 unfortunately, but the Samyang 24 is just over 2 pounds as well, and the CP2 just under 2 pounds, so not such a bit difference there, but a slight difference anyway. But size wise, the Samyang is quite a lot longer. Now let's look at the Samyang 24 in a little bit more detail. You have again the iris, which is quite closely spaced together. Focus rotation again similar, just over 180 degrees, and there are obviously focus gears on both the iris and the focusing ring. Then if you look at the Zeiss, it's again not equally spaced iris aperture values, but much more control at the wider apertures where arguably you would need them. And then the focusing, which I have to say is quite a lot tighter on the 25mm that we've got here than the XEEN lens. Now that might not be a good thing if you're manual focusing, but it might be more useful if you're using motors. So that's possibly a matter of choice how stiff you like your lens to be. If we look at the iris blades, the XEEN is nice and smooth, but again I think it's ever so slightly squarer than the Zeiss, which you're about to see, which has got a fairly round aperture. But you know what really matters is what this looks like when you actually shoot, and we have a few samples on the site when you can actually compare for yourself between the CP2s and the XEEN lenses. And then finally, just for size comparison, here's a 50mm CINE next to a 50mm CP.2. Note that the lens cap on the on the CP.2 is a lot bigger than the lens cap on the CINE, but you get the idea. And that's it for our roundup of the CINE lenses. These are the ones that we're looking at here, are pre-production, but hopefully we'll have production models soon for a fuller evaluation.